Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Apocryphal Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Friday Apocryphal and podcast. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Jubilees, chapters 40 through 42. And I have the James C. Vanderkam Hermenia translation of Jubilees.
You know, I have the same thing, but I also have the commentary.
Oh, wow, objectively better.
It is objectively better.
Hermenia.
It's the same translation, just the commentary is extensive in this one.
Yes. Is it also by Fortress Press?
Well, it's from Hermenia, so yes.
Yes. Well, thanks, Fortress Press. You know what? We go over so many of their books.
We do, yeah.
We should see a sponsorship from Fortress Press.
That would be interesting.
Would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
You know, Fortress Press, if you want us to shill, as we do, we shill the hell out of the commentaries we read.
Yeah, we definitely talk a lot about them.
Yep.
And recommend them a lot, too. Yeah, we should be partnered up with...
Come on, Fortress
Press. Classic.
And send us an email, MilwaukeeAtheists@gmail.com. I'm sure they'll see this.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Definitely. No chance they won't. We're just absolutely everywhere. So I do want to point out that we are slowly approaching the end of Jubilees.
Yes, we are. It's not that much longer, honestly.
Yeah, just a few more weeks should be.
Yeah, and then we'll be going into Tobit.
Yeah, Tobit.
Which we have commentary on in a couple of different things.
Yes, we do. We have commentary on Tobit in the New Interpreter's Bible.
Volume 6.
Yes.
Commentary.
We have commentary about it in Erdman's, and of course we have the commentary from the Anchor Bible.
Which I like the Anchor Bible.
It's nice. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Their version of Maccabees was very good.
Yeah. I agree. All right, but without further ado, how about we hop into the reading?
Oh, okay. Do you have anything that you want to say about this wonderful chapter of Jubilees that we're about to read before you
about chapter 40?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
So the writer's procedure in this section resembles the way we handled the dreams of the butler and baker in chapter 39. He leaves out the lengthy descriptions of Pharaoh's two dreams, both where the narrator relates them in Genesis 41, 1 through 7, and where Pharaoh tells them to Joseph in verses 17 through 24. The omission constitutes more than just an exercise in eliminating duplication. The rewriter erases virtually everything. In fact, of the first 24 verses in Genesis 41, apart from a few summary words, he reproduces only the part of verse 8 regarding the inability of the Egyptian experts to interpret the dreams. So more on the polemic side than on the retelling.
All right. Well, then, let's hop into it. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams and becomes ruler of Egypt. Chapter 40. At that time, Pharaoh had two dreams in one night about the subject of the famine that would come on the whole land. When he awakened, he summoned all the dream interpreters who were in Egypt and the enchanters. He told them his two dreams, but they were unable to interpret them. You remember this from Genesis, right?
Yeah.
So these dreams were like there was a field of grain, and then like they died, right?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah. So he told them his two dreams, but they were unable to interpret them. Ethiopic has understand them instead of interpret.
Yeah, that's pretty standard, honestly.
Yeah. Then the chief butler remembered Joseph. After he had told the king about him, he was brought from prison, and he related the dreams in his presence. He interpreted them in Pharaoh's presence, that his two dreams were one. Ethiopic says he said them in Pharaoh's presence. He said to him, 7 years are coming in which there will be abundance in the entire land of Egypt. But afterwards there will be a 7-year famine, like of which has never been in the entire land. So now let Pharaoh appoint officers throughout the entire land of Egypt, and let them collect each city's food in the city during the period of the years of abundance. So Hebrew and Latin agree that it says officers, but Ethiopic has a puzzling reading that has not yet been explained. The strange term is also in an odd place in the Ethiopic sentence.
Yeah, and there is sadly no commentary on the Ethiopic version.
Well, lucky we have this version. So there will be food for 7 years of famine, and the land will not perish because of the famine, since it will be very severe. So this is what happened in Genesis, right?
Yes, except it's a much shorter version.
Much shorter.
Like, honestly, it's maybe 40% of the length, kind of looking at it all together, or 30% even. So the first and most glaring difference, aside from the brevity of Jubilees, is that Joseph does not suggest choosing a man who is discerning and wise and set him over the land of Egypt. He calls for the appointment of officers or overseers throughout the land. In addition, he does not say these officers should take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years, or that they should gather all the food of these good years that are coming. The only task he envisages for them is collecting each city's food in the city, and even that assignment is to be done by them and not, at least not explicitly, under the authority of the Pharaoh.
It's a really strange situation, thinking about it. Right, because Pharaoh has these interpreters and enchanters and stuff, and like interpreting dreams. Look, Freud interpreted dreams, right?
I mean, it's a thing that anyone could do.
Anyone could do it, and it's not like they have to give like a solid, like, this is definitely what it means. They could even like posit, like, well, maybe your dream means this. Maybe it means that, but they don't make any effort to do it.
Right.
At least it doesn't say that they do. And after not making any effort to do it, which is literally their job,
like you had one job.
He's like, this butler just happens to know this random prisoner slave who he's like, yeah, this guy's pretty good at it. And Pharaoh, who's like, essentially a king.
Yeah.
He's gonna call in this random slave prisoner.
Yeah.
Instead of these interpreters who he has right in front of him. It's their job to do it.
He did he called upon them, but they failed to do so. But here's the weird thing. So did they just say they couldn't understand what he was talking about, or did he listened to something they had to say and then go like, no, that can't be it? In which case, like, how would you know what the proper interpretation is?
Right. There's no way, because if they just posit something, then from his perspective, it would be the same as Joseph just positing something.
Exactly.
And there's no reason that he would go through the massive effort that Joseph was talking about, just based off of his interpretation when he had alternative interpretations, right? So it's just a very strange situation overall. It doesn't seem very realistic.
Absolutely not. I don't.
Here we are.
That's why I'm saying, like, I don't think the Genesis stuff was ever meant to be literal.
Now, I could see a Pharaoh maybe taking in interpreters from outside of his royal interpreters, right? But I don't see it reasonably being like, all right, grab this guy from prison who's a slave.
Yeah.
Like, because this one butler happens to think favorably of him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember what happened to Joseph prior, the other guy who could have vouched for him died.
Ah, yes.
So he only had one guy who could have vouched for him. So that sucks for him, but I mean, it worked out in his favor. So
lucky him, yeah.
God gave Joseph a favorable and kind reception before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his servants.
Ah, there we go. Well, that explains it.
Yeah, I know. That's just a throwaway explanation. Like, well, we can't really explain why Pharaoh called him here or why Pharaoh's accepting his interpretation. But we'll just say that God did it.
There it is. It answers all of our questions.
Yep. Pharaoh said to his servants, "We will not find a man as wise and knowledgeable as this man, for the Spirit of God is with him."
I highly doubt the pharaohs would have said that.
Yeah.
It was forced out of him.
Right, of course.
God played him like a bagpipe.
Now, did the ancient Egyptians at any point worship Yahweh or El?
No, not to my knowledge.
So there would be...
There was a small period of time where they were, or at least the pharaoh, was monotheistic under Akhenaten, who I still want to do a video on. But he identified himself with God. So...
right, which a lot of emperors did.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of emperors also identified themselves as being among a pantheon of gods.
Yeah.
This guy was more like, everyone else is fake.
Yeah, he was like, I am the Aten. That's the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
So his son, Tutankhamun, I think was his direct son. I don't think it was his son. So his son would have originally probably been named Tutankhaten. Yeah.
All right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that any pharaoh in history would say anything in recognition of a worshiper of Yahweh.
No. I mean, it's clear that they knew about, El, for example.
Right.
But I would say that Yahweh worship was not really, it was never a thing in ancient Egypt. I mean, maybe at some point they would have acknowledged it, right, when Israel was on the rise. But this was
at
before.
This point,
yeah,
it's just some random slave who's the grandson of some dude.
Yeah.
Who had some money. Well, anyways, let's continue. He appointed him as the second in command in his entire kingdom, gave him authority over all the land of Egypt, and allowed him to ride on Pharaoh's second chariot. He dressed him with clothing made of linen and put a gold chain on his neck. He made a proclamation before him and said, Il and Abirer.
So
Verse 7.
Yes, I do have that.
I'll finish the verse.
Go ahead.
He put the signet ring on his hand and made him ruler over his entire household. He made him great and said to him, I will not be greater than you, except with regard to the throne only. Wow. Highly unrealistic.
So there are a few, there's a good amount of Hebrew notes here. I'm going to pass over most of those and get to the stuff that I can actually read. So the Ethiopic has il wa abirer, and the Latin has ll et habirel. So ll should be the word God, el, repeated, while abir or habir could be transcriptions of another epithet for God. Part of Jacob's blessing of Joseph, actually, in Genesis 49:24. The last
epithet, to refresh everyone's memory, is a one-word blessing kind of thing that describes a chunk of something, right? Like a all good thing. Isn't that what an epithet is? Or by God?
an epithet's another name for something.
Yeah.
Like a title.
A one-word name, though, usually.
It can be multiple words.
Oh, fair enough.
So
Yeah, like
Mother of Dragons is an epithet for Daenerys Targaryen.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough, thanks.
So the expression would then mean God, the mighty one of God. Though in Egyptian is the one who orders that these words be said before Joseph. For the author,
We make a show called God, that's obviously the main character, the mighty one of God.
God it is.
They're all amazing. It's like Babar or whatever. Bad name things.
This is such an absurd situation.
Oh
now.
boy.
They say that God gave him a favorable reception before Pharaoh. This isn't a favorable reception.
This is more than just favorable.
So first of all, he has really no reason to accept Joseph's interpretation. Then he definitely has no reason to like give Joseph a bunch of riches.
Right.
And he definitely has no reason to also give him like political rule over the entirety of Egypt. And he also has no reason to like even see Joseph as an equal. Even if Joseph were like an interpreter who interpreted that correctly, Pharaoh already has other interpreters. He has no reason to see one interpreter as like equal to himself.
Yeah, and he has no reason to think that out of all the possible interpretations, this one is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way. So continuing on with God, though an Egyptian is the one who orders that these words be said before Joseph, the author, Il may have had the more modest sense of hero, and this is the way in which Ranch explained the words called out before.
Obviously,
Joseph.
the second character is named Hero. Yes, very good. So much more modest than God. Though.
Yeah,
Oh,
obviously.
Yeah, it's spelled Gyro. Gyro.
Oh.
Hero.
All right, let's continue.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Joseph became ruler over the entire land of Egypt. All of Pharaoh's princes, all of his servants, and all who were doing the king's work loved him because he conducted himself in a just way. He was not arrogant, proud, or partial, nor did he accept bribes because he was ruling all the people of the land in a just way. So, not only does he get all these riches and rule over the land, but he's universally loved as well.
People were just like, yeah, this is the guy for us.
Wow. Incredible. The land of Egypt lived in harmony before Pharaoh because of Joseph, for the Lord was with him. He gave him a favorable and kind reception for all his family before all who knew him and who heard reports about him. Pharaoh's rule was just, and there was no Satan or any evil one.
Ooh.
So this no Satan is clearly a reference to like multiple, like a class of.
Yeah, exactly. So the last characteristic reminds one of those other passages in the book in which the absence of a Satan is noted. All of them speak of ideal times. The occurrence in 46:2 parallels the present one because, quote, there was no Satan or any evil one throughout all of Joseph's lifetime, that he lived after his father Jacob, because all the Egyptians were honoring the children of Israel for all of Joseph's lifetime. The passage follows a verse in which the narrator says the Israelites were numerous and unified, and they loved and helped one another. So yeah, that motif pops up a lot because remember, Satan just means adversary.
Mm-hmm. And it can't, like, if you're taking like a traditional like Catholic perspective, right? Like Satan as like Lucifer. Obviously,
yeah, I wouldn't even say that. It wouldn't even be a traditional Catholic perspective. That would be more of a pop, what would that be? Like a cultural one,
Mm-hmm.
a pop mythological one.
Pop culture.
Pop mythology.
Yeah,
You should write a book about that.
about pop mythology.
Pop mythology.
Yeah, it'll be. Let's see. I'll talk about Lilith.
Yeah. You'll talk about Lilith, Satan.
Yeah.
Revelations.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Noah's Ark.
The 25 Horsemen.
The 25 Horsemen.
Unrelated to those four guys who are alive.
Oh, man. But, yeah, what a nuts story. Anyways, let's continue. The king named Joseph Sephantiphanes and gave Joseph as a wife the daughter of Potiphar, the daughter of the priest of Heliopolis, the chief cook.
Yeah, so something on the name here. So to mark his new status, Pharaoh bestowed a name on Joseph and provided him with a wife of sufficient rank. Mm-hmm. Genesis 41:45 is the source for both Joseph's special name and for the identity and family connections of his spouse. Joseph's name in Genesis is Zaphanath Paneah. Jubilees transcribes it, and the spellings in the Ethiopic manuscripts vary. One that enjoys some support is Sephanitaphanes, I don't know, where the vowel I is like the one in the Sumerian Pentateuch. The unusual words have spawned many attempts at interpretation, both ancient and modern. One modern proposal that has found wide acceptance is that of G. Steidendorf. Quote, the God name, speaks and he or she lives. Ancient expositors who looked for Hebrew explanations tried to relate the name to Joseph's experiences. Several of these appear in, there's a rabbinic commentary on Genesis. Rabbi Yohanan says, sorry, this is obviously a reading from, the Talmud, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's, or Targum or something. So it's going to be kind of dull. So I apologize in advance. The name connotes he reveals things that are hidden and easily declares them. Hezekiah interpreted the name. With his knowledge, he reveals things that are hidden and sets the mind of people at ease. Then there are a few others. But whatever the author of Jubilees thought it meant, he does not report it. He simply transcribes the strange-sounding name and moves on with the story, just as Genesis does.
So it means like revealer, some guy who reveals something, basically.
Or like
prophet, basically. Guy who brings
kind of
information.
kind of like a prophet, yeah.
Functionally, it describes what he does.
It's very similar.
I'm going to point out that this is gross. He is given the daughter of Potiphar as a wife. But if you remember, he was a slave under Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife was coming on to him just a couple chapters back.
Yeah, that's right.
And the reason that he rejected Potiphar's wife was not because she was too old for him or because he found her unattractive, but because she was married.
Right.
Which means that they're probably roughly in the same age group. So now he's going after the daughter of someone.
He's given the daughter.
He's given the daughter. So this is like a huge age discrepancy.
You know what? Maybe Joseph is just a real nice guy, and he doesn't want to get involved in the middle of the relationship and whatnot.
Well, hold on a second. All right. In the next verse,
maybe
it says,
he's just a really good guy.
Well, in the next verse, it says, on the day when Joseph took up his position with Pharaoh, he was 30 years of age when he took up his position with Pharaoh. Which means that prior to this, he was in prison for a number of years. And prior to that, he was a slave of Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife was trying to hook up with him. If we're assuming that Potiphar's wife is roughly an analogous age to Joseph, that means at the time she was like maybe 24 or so. And her daughter, at this point in time, at the point in time when she was hitting on Joseph, probably couldn't have been, of reproductive age if she had a daughter at that point, right? And if she had a daughter at that point, she probably was very young. So just because, she only becomes productive, sexually reproductive, capable at a certain age.
Yeah, but I don't know why we would assume that they are the same age or near the same age.
Well,
what is she old?
Well, how old is Potiphar?
Joseph, we don't know.
Currently I'm looking for some of the stuff on the age. So the next topic consists of chronological information regarding...
No, he was 17 when they brought him to Egypt. Joseph was. So, and...
Yeah, you're making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, I would say so.
No, so he's 30 when he gets this position with Pharaoh and gets given this guy's child as his wife. Right? He's 17 when he gets there.
Pretty normal.
The guy's wife was hitting on him when he was 17. when she was married. He doesn't reject her because of like a massive age discrepancy.
Doesn't say that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that that says anything about the age of the wife.
Sorry.
Well,
Gotta finish the chapter.
yeah, we can talk about things in the book too. But no,
It's not in the book.
Yeah, so the text states his age of, and we're talking about Joseph, obviously, age of 30 years, but does not date it within the full chronological system of Jubilees, weeks, and years at this juncture, which is a bummer, obviously. And honestly, I think that's the...
I'm going to figure this out.
You're going to figure it out? Okay. Yeah. The thing is, it's this, all the commentary is about Joseph's age. That's all the commentary that's in here and trying to date that. So Jubilees sounds redundant in verse 11. On the day when Joseph took up his position with Pharaoh, he was 30 years of age when he took up his position with Pharaoh. Okay. Yeah, that is true. It is redundant. But yeah, it doesn't say anything about the age of the wife or the Pharaoh's wife.
Either way, we've had lots of horrible things where children get married off in this. So
yeah, this just maybe
who knows?
Maybe she was already an adult, and you know what? Maybe she is actually older, and the reason she wanted to go after Joseph and not Potiphar was because he just couldn't get it up anymore. He just couldn't do it. So
that could be it. I'm looking around Wikipedia. I know. Great
amazing
source here, right? Yeah, they just say that it's difficult to tie Potiphar or Joseph accurately to a particular pharaoh or time period.
Well, sure.
And like they don't really have
we don't know how old Potiphar's wife is.
So there's apparently nothing in any of the other Targums or commentaries or anything that say anything about this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
No.
It's a relevant factor.
All the stuff that they care about is Joseph's age.
Yeah.
Scope creeper.
But like because we don't have enough information to even start to ask that question.
Right.
Yeah.
But
some scope creep there.
He's
man.
30 years old.
Yeah, Joseph is.
Now,
that doesn't tell you how old the person coming onto him is.
Doesn't tell you anyone else's age.
Now, but Potiphar's daughter, you can get an age for, because you can say with pretty, you can be pretty certain in a given culture, in a given time period, when someone would be married by, generally, especially within a given social caste, right? You can say people were generally married by the age of 13 in this country during these years, right? So
I don't know.
So for the options available to him, right, he has one person.
I mean, it's safe to assume that she was younger than him, probably.
She's of marrying age.
I have a weird proposal.
What is marrying age in Egypt?
In ancient Egypt, I have no idea.
Let's say that we can't know, and so it could be possible or not, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
There we are.
We should move on from that one.
Yeah, but Chris would say that about literally anything.
That's true, but
I'm good at that.
On this one, I agree that it'll go nowhere. We do not have the information.
Oof. So we don't have any information on the average marrying age of Egyptians?
No, I personally do not.
Wow. They should include this information in their commentaries on this commentary.
That would make him look bad. They'd never do that.
I don't know if it'd make him look bad necessarily. Just be another comment. Either way, let's continue with the reading.
Yeah, though 30 would be very old to get married at
probably
this period in time. I'm assuming, like extremely old.
Yeah,
most people would be dead around then.
A good chunk of people. Yeah.
Okay. Isaac died that year. There you go. Things turned out just as Joseph had reported about the interpretation of his two dreams just as he had reported to him. There were 7 years of abundance in the whole land of Egypt. The land of Egypt was most productive. One measure would produce 1,800 measures. Okay. Joseph collected each city's food in the city until it was so full of wheat that it was impossible to countermeasure it because of its quantity.
Wow.
That's a ridiculous amount. Yeah. So they just throw in this bit about Isaac dying. I guess to give it context within the timeline.
Yeah, so it's certainly... so one wonders, however, whether when he took up his position with Pharaoh should read with, and in that year Isaac died, though the intervening conjunction does not favor realigning the clauses.
It just seems to come out of nowhere.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. That is the end of the chapter.
Yeah, there's really not much to say other than, there's some references to some ancient commentaries, but like honestly, they don't really add much, doesn't look like.
And I'm gonna look into this average marrying.
Oh, you are. Oh, how fantastic. So I am going to help you out and go to the proper section of the commentary. So you're very, very welcome. And here is this commentary while you weirdly obsess over the marrying age.
Yeah. No. So woman usually married at the age of about 13 years or immediately after puberty.
Okay.
So there we go.
She was young,
She was probably an early teenager, maybe even a tween.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
So that is the context of the situation.
And Joseph
for those of you who want an
didn't do anything
accurate
with her.
understanding of like
Jubilees.
The familial context that these characters find themselves in. Right?
All right. So we are on chapter 41.
Yeah, if you're enjoying the stream so far, give it a like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff.
Seriously, share it around. We love people being here and talking amongst themselves, joining in the commentaries. And also the viewer engagement really does help. It helps us show up more in suggested feeds. So viewer engagement, good stuff. All right. So this section, chapter 41, is about Judah and Tamar.
Yeah, so this is
this is going to get raunchy.
Yeah, there's a 3-verse section about Judah and Tamar. It opens and ends with a date, 2165.
Exciting.
And 2170. Right? No, I guess that's even way further down. But like the stuff about Judah and Tamar is mainly towards the beginning.
Yeah. Looks like it's pretty much all here. All right. In the 45th Jubilee, the second week during the second year, 2165, Judah took as a wife for his firstborn heir one of the Aramean women whose name was Tamar. He hated her and did not sleep with her because his mother was a Canaanite woman and he wanted to marry someone from his mother's tribe. But his father, Judah, did not allow him. This heir, Judah's firstborn, was evil, and the Lord killed him.
So in Genesis 39, 6-7, this story goes as follows. Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. So, yes, Jubilees is more detailed.
Yeah, it
Genesis
says because of the whole Canaanite thing.
Yeah, and this is something that I think is relevant to Jubilees as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. Throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, it continually pops up with like all of the patriarchs that they bring up.
Yeah, and how it's such a bad thing that they would go off and marry Canaanite women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Help me out.
Yeah, so he hated her. Yeah, Judah was evil, Er was evil, so God killed him. Then Judah said to his brother Onan, "Oh, this one? Go into your brother's wife perform the I don't even know this word, levirate? Levirate? I don't know what that word is.
What verse is that?
4, verse
Thank
4.
You. Verse 4.
Yeah. So perform the levirate duty for her. The levirate duty? I don't know.
The levirate duty.
Never seen that word in my life. And produce descendants for your brother.
Okay. The texts, the lines about the second brother Onan follow the text of Genesis more closely than for error. Jubilees 41:4 quotes Genesis 38:8, where Judah orders Onan to perform the duty of a brother-in-law to raise up an heir for his deceased brother. The text presupposes that this is the normal practice, though the legislation for levirate marriage appears in the Hebrew Bible only in the time of Moses, Deuteronomy 25:5-10. The Deuteronomic law prescribes that when a man dies without a son, his brother is to become a surrogate husband. The first son born of the union of the widow and her brother-in-law would perpetuate the name of the deceased in Israel. If the brother did not wish to assume this role, he had to appear before the elders at the gate to reaffirm his decision. The woman, neglected in this fashion, was to remove his sandal and spit in his face to shame him. The case in Genesis 38 and Jubilees 41 is not the same as the one in Deuteronomy 25. Judah does not order Onan to marry Tamar, only to have sex with her so that she could bear a son. What happens is next is not precisely the same in the two texts.
So, okay, so from what I'm gathering, Jason, thank you for helping me out there. Yeah, okay, so it's apparently it's a kind of marriage, and it describes that specific situation of the brother of the husband.
Yes, that is a levirate marriage.
Okay. So yeah, if you guys remember, I think in Genesis, Onan was the one who was smited on the spot, right? Because he came on the ground. I think that was him.
Yes.
Okay, great. I love that. I love that one. Love that story.
This occurs here.
Okay.
As well.
Onan knew that the descendants would not be his, but his brother's. So he entered the house of his brother's wife, and he poured out the semen on the ground. In the Lord's estimation, it was an evil act, and he killed him.
Yeah, so in Genesis, it says whenever he went into his brother's wife. So, according to both texts, Onan decides not to carry out his father's command, and nothing is said about a ceremonial shaming him for his father or for his failure to perform his fraternal duty. Yet, where Genesis indicates that Onan destroyed his semen whenever he went into his brother's wife, Jubilees pictures this as a one-time act, not something he did repeatedly.
Well, it also says, so he entered the house of his brother's wife. So if we're
moreover, the one occurrence happened when Onan visited her house. The two lived in separate places. That is, he replaces the expression literally, he would go into her in Genesis 38:9 with he entered her house.
Oh,
the writer is deeply concerned to show that Tamar had no sexual relations with either of his two brothers. Genesis leaves the impression of regular intimate contact between Onan and Tamar, but Jubilees limits it to one instance so that there could be no question about Tamar's virginity.
Or the Canaanite thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what a ridiculous thing.
Yeah. All right. So this guy's dead too now. So Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain in your father's house as a widow until my son Salom grows up. Then I will give you to him as a wife." He grew up, but Judah's wife, Betsuel, did not allow her son Salom to marry her. Judah's wife, Betsuel, died during the 5th year of this week. Oh, unexpectedly died.
Unexpectedly
Conveniently.
died. Very convenient.
Seems like a strange inclusion there, but okay.
Yeah.
In the 6th year, Judah went up to shear his sheep in Timnah. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is now going up to shear his sheep in Timnah." Then she put aside her widow's clothing from herself, put on a veil, beautified herself, and sat down at the gate near the road to Timnah. As Judah was going along, he found her and supposed that she was a prostitute. He said to her, "Let me come into you." Please, let me come into you. That's what he said. It's not written here again, but that's what he said.
So this is verse 10.
You know, it's weird that they would portray Judah as a lover of prostitutes.
So she
nothing against it, by the way. Sex work is real work, but nothing. This doesn't really seem like a thing that the author of Jubilees would write about Judah.
So apparently the veil itself did not signify that she was a prostitute. Judah did not recognize Tamar because the veil obscured her face, and he drew a conclusion about the kind of woman she was from the place where she was sitting. Judah and his brothers had duped their father with a piece of clothing. Now he himself is fooled by an item of dress.
She said to him, "Come in." So he came in. She said to him, "Give me my fee." He said to her, "I have nothing with me except the ring on my finger, my neck chain, and my staff that is in my hand." Giggity. She said to him, "Give them to me until you send me my fee." He said to her, "I will send you a kid." He gave them to her. After he was with her, she became pregnant by him. Okay, so she is specifically looking to do it with Judah, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, he's propositioning her.
I know, but that's probably why she got all dressed up and went there.
Yeah, it doesn't really go into detail about that. Now, we can assume maybe that like she dressed up as a prostitute and went to the prostitute side of town.
Yeah, or maybe so she dressed up like this in order to go to Timnah, where Judah would be, and said that she beautified herself, and she was just waiting at the gate, kind of waiting for Judah. And then
No, she was just sitting there. And then Judah comes up out of nowhere.
yeah, but she knows that that's Judah.
Well, she does, but she also has a guy who's propositioning to give her money.
True. I guess. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's just a very weird situation in general. But either way, now she's.
I mean, it's definitely not like she's an unwilling participant.
Right. No, I'm just saying it's a weird situation.
Yeah.
All right.
Like they have a transaction. They're like bartering over the appropriate fee for a prostitute.
I will send you a kid. That means a goat. Yeah. Okay.
Food. I'll buy you dinner.
How nice. Kind.
Yep.
And here's stuff seems to get kind of scary, kind of spooky.
Mm-hmm.
So this section is titled Tamar Disappears.
Ooh.
Conveniently. Then Judah went to his sheep, but she went to her father's house. He sent the kid through his Adulamite shepherd, but he did not find her. He asked the men of the area, "Where is the prostitute who is here?" They said to him, "There is no prostitute here, nor do we have any prostitutes with us." He returned and told him, "I did not find her. And when I asked the men of the area, they said to me, 'There is no prostitute here.' Judah said, 'Let her keep them, so that we may not become the object of mockery.'"
Yeah, so I mean he tries to pay her.
Yeah.
And
so now she just has the stuff as collateral, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she has the ring, the neck chain, and the staff. That's what she has.
Yeah, well, it's so that when she shows up on his doorstep and is like, "Give me that child support," she can be like, This is definitely your kid. Look at these things that I have.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, and it's just she didn't actually disappear. It's just she's somewhere else now.
Where?
Yeah.
At her father's house, her actual father's house. And Judah's all like, "Oh, I wonder where this prostitute is." All right.
Where in the world is Judah's prostitute?
Yeah.
When she reached 3 months, she was visibly pregnant. Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has now become pregnant through prostitution."
So the Genesis.
How would they know that?
Genesis states, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the whore. Moreover, she is pregnant as a result of whoredom."
Of course.
So but that's different, right? Because in Jubilees, the first thing that they focus on is her pregnancy. And in Genesis, the first thing that they focus on is her whoredom.
True. Also, who is she telling that she... who is telling this to Judah? Either way. Judah went to her father's house and said to her father and brothers, "Bring her out and let her be burned because she has done something impure in Israel." Oh, shut the fuck up, Judah.
Mm-hmm.
Shut your ass up.
Yeah.
Fucking hypocrite.
So, according to Genesis, Judah simply announces that she is to be executed by fire. To whom
sounds
he announced
about being
this,
burned, yeah.
And why burning was the penalty is not said. Jubilees makes a more formal occasion of it. So you can go into detail about it.
All right. When she was brought out to be burned, she sent the ring, the neck chain, and the staff to her father-in-law and said, "Recognize whose these are, because I am pregnant by him." Judah recognized them and said, "Tamar has been more just than I. Therefore, do not burn her." For this reason, she was not given to Salome, and he did not approach her again. Afterwards, she was pregnant and gave birth to 2 boys, Perez and Zerah, during the 7th year of this second week, 2170.
So what verse was that?
That was verse 21, the last one.
All right. So prior to
more twins, huh?
Yeah. But in the history of interpretation, one way to account for the death penalty by burning has been to find a priestly ancestry for Tamar. Targum's Pseudo-Jonathan Genesis 38:6 provides an example. Quote, "Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, the daughter of Shem the Great, whose name was Tamar." In verse 24, it continues in the same vein. "Now, after a period of 3 months, it became known that she was pregnant, and Judah was told as follows: Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and moreover, behold, she is pregnant because of her harlotry. And Judah said, Is she not the daughter of a priest? Bring her out and let her be burned." So that is an attempt to explain the method of death penalty that they propose.
Classic.
Yeah, but the narrator reports that Judah never again had sex with Tamar. There's no suggestion that the encounter between them was wrong, and the thought of punishing Judah for anything he had done in the chapter never arises. That is how it works in Genesis. But here in Jubilees, Judah is apparently the one who makes a decision about his son.
Yeah.
Because of the events that transpired in the chapter, he didn't give Tamar to Shelah. He was not the one who primarily responsible for preventing the marriage. His wife had blocked it, so his guilt regarding the marriage that did not happen was mitigated to some extent, although he had not kept his promise, and now the marriage would have been inappropriate since Judah and Tamar were apparently considered married and were expecting a child.
Well, all right then. Yeah.
So Shelah was no longer needed to produce a male heir for his brother so there would be no question of another levirate marriage. The Judah of Jubilees also refrains from further sexual relations with Tamar. The Ethiopic text says he did not approach her again, while the Syriac citation agrees with most versions of Genesis 38:26 by saying he did not know her again.
Okay. Following this, the 7 years of copious harvest about which Joseph had told Pharaoh were completed. So that was just like in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Judah. Oh, that was just okay. So that section was called "The 7 Years of Abundance End," and it's just the one verse.
Yeah,
And then we're gonna continue to legal issues, and we're back to Judah.
Yep.
So okay, I suppose
7 years of abundance and
it seems strange there.
yeah, it doesn't really say much.
I mean, unless I think they're just trying to place it chronologically.
Yeah,
That's my guess.
It's a chronological thing.
Yeah. Judah knew that what he had done was evil because he had lain with his daughter-in-law. In his own view, he considered it evil, and he knew that he had done wrong and erred, for he had uncovered his son's covering. He began to lament and plead before the Lord because of his sin. We told him, oh, this is interesting. We told him in a dream that it would be forgiven for him because he had pleaded very much and because he had lamented and did not do it again.
Yeah, so
Verse
we
24
being
there.
the angels of the presence.
Right.
Makes
sense.
And straightforward information from a heavenly source. And
From a dream,
thus
conveniently.
Utterly unimpeachable source. The angel of the presence, whose more direct speech continues to the end of the chapter, says that he and his colleagues disclosed to Judah that he would be forgiven. The reason they state are the pleading and lamenting that he had done and the fact that he never repeated the act. His behavior showed the sincerity with which he turned from his sin. So then it goes on to explain more about why he gets a pardon.
He had forgiveness because he turned from his sin and from his ignorance, for the sin was a great one before our God. Anyone who acts in this way, anyone who sleeps with his daughter-in-law, is to be burned in fire, so that he burns in it, because impurity and contamination have come on them. They are to be burned. So, it'll cleanse them by fire. Also, the interesting part about apparently, in many Ethiopic manuscripts read mother-in-law instead of daughter-in-law there.
Yes, the wording in 4125 yields a sense that makes the law appear strange in context. Anyone who acts in this way, anyone who sleeps with chamatu, the word most naturally be translated as mother-in-law, is to be burned in fire, so that he burns on it because of impurity and contamination. It is possible that in verse 25, the writer is talking more generally about sexual relations with female in-law and forbidding them. And in verse 26 indicates that this is the intention. Reference to the chamat, however, seems peculiar when the case under consideration involves a father-in-law sleeping with his daughter-in-law. As a result, some translators have amended the text to read daughter-in-law. Berger has taken a different approach. He adopts the reading "and anyone," so that the legal sentence begins with anyone who acts in this way and anyone who lies with his mother-in-law. For him, the writer is talking about two offenses, as he does in verse 26, sex with his daughter-in-law and sex with his mother-in-law. However, neither an emendation nor adopting a reading found mostly in later manuscripts may be necessary, since the word chamatu introduces another potentially confusing element into the mix. The lexicographers say that it can mean both mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and manuscripts 20, 21, 35, 58 read mar'atu, bride, spouse, daughter-in-law. So that the law in Leviticus 20:14 that deals with a forbidden in-law relationship is applied to Jubilees 41:25 to the specific instance described in the chapter. That law called for burning both the male and females to death as punishment. Siegel suggests another way of arriving at a similar result. There's no reason to change 41:25 from mother-in-law to daughter-in-law because of the midrash halakha operating here. Leviticus 20:12, which deals with the case of sleeping with a daughter-in-law, does not specify the method of punishment, but Leviticus 20:14 does, death by fire for the man and the two women involved, his wife and her mother. Jubilees 41:26 draws an analogy between the cases of intercourse with a daughter-in-law and with a mother-in-law, applying the method of punishment explicitly described in the latter case to the former. But Segal's conclusion that this is an alternative halakhic explanation for Tamar's punishment than that offered in the rewritten narrative is wide of the mark. He may have correctly retraced the writer's legal thinking, but he is guilty of confusing two matters. Why Judah wanted to punish Tamar in the story, he thought she was a prostitute, and the author's consideration of what actually happened, an illegal in-law relationship. There is no conflict here, since the story makes clear that Judah had sinned. In the narrative section, the writer indicates several times that in-laws were involved, and that such unions were included under the category of sexual impurity. Kugel's suggestion that the author of verses 1 through 21, 27 through 28, did not deal with the questions of guilt or innocence, likewise does not fit the evidence. Exactly where the tension between narrative and verses 23 through 26 lies is not easy to see. Judah acknowledged that he had sinned in the narrative, and 23 through 25 show why this man, this wrongdoer, received pardon. The two are consistent with each other.
All right, then. Yeah, I was actually going to ask about the passage in Leviticus with all the in-law relationships.
Yeah.
But you hit on that. All right. Now you order the Israelites that there is to be no impurity among them, for anyone who lies with his daughter-in-law or his mother-in-law has done something that is impure. They are to burn the man who lay with her and the woman. Then anger and punishment will cease from Israel. We told Judah that his two sons had not lain with her. For this reason, his descendants were established for another generation and would not be uprooted. Okay, so because they didn't consummate their marriages, quote unquote, it didn't count.
Yeah, no, she was still a virgin
because
the other dude always jizzed on the floor.
The thing is, it doesn't even say that they had sex in Jubilees. He just went into her house. He went into her house. In
Genesis, it says he went into her.
Yes, it does. Yeah. But in Jubilees, it doesn't say, unless it's supposed to be a metaphor. But yeah, he just came on the floor.
Yeah.
And, gets smited.
What a shitty way to die.
Yeah, right?
Like, can you imagine?
With your dick in your hand?
Yeah. No, like, especially if they didn't have sex.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
If he just, like, pre-mead and then died immediately.
Bummer.
Well, I guess there's worse last experiences.
I'm sure.
But I'm sure he would have preferred a couple more minutes.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Either way. Yeah,
yeah, why don't you
continue there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So then anger and punishment will cease from Israel. We told Judah that his two sons had not lain with her. For this reason, his descendants were established for another generation and would not be uprooted. For in his integrity, he had gone and demanded punishment, because Judah had wanted to burn her on the basis of the law that Abraham had commanded his children.
Yeah, the punishment Judah demanded for Tamar was the appropriate one, according to the angel.
Yeah, but the angel's just going to pass over the fact that
he emphasizes that Judah acted with integrity in sentencing her to death with fire, because that was the law Abraham enunciated.
Sure.
But also draws language from it. He mentions the penalty of uprooting that Abraham names in 20 verse 4. He's speaking there about Canaanites for wives. Anyone who commits deeds of sexual impurity is to be uprooted. The meaning is that the person is to lack descendants, to be removed from future existence on earth.
Which you do not want.
Yeah.
You don't want to lack descendants. You want to reproduce.
Now, Judah and Tamar were forgiven for their offense and thus permitted to establish their new, totally non-Canaanite line upon the earth.
Totally non-Canaanite.
Totally non-Canaanite.
All right, that's actually the end of the chapter. If you guys are enjoying the stream so far, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, all that good juicy stuff that YouTubers ask their viewers to do.
They beg their viewers to do.
Yes, please do the things.
Yep.
And then we can hop into the last chapter for the day, chapter 42. Exciting.
Yeah, a little longer one.
Yes.
Slightly. During the first year of the third week of the 45th Jubilee, 2171.
Oh, looks like we're finally talking about the famine.
Yep. The famine began to come into the land. The rain refused to be given down to the earth because there was nothing that was coming down. The earth became unproductive. But in the land of Egypt, there was food because Joseph had gathered the grain in the land during the 7 years of copious harvest and kept it. When the Egyptians came to Joseph so that he would give them food, he opened storehouses where the grain was. He gave it to them to eat in the first year and sold it to the people of the land in exchange for money. Wow.
So the circumstances in Egypt, however, were different, not because crops were growing, but because Joseph had made careful preparations. At this point in verse 2, the writer again picks up the words from Genesis 41:54. Jubilees does not say with Genesis that there was famine in every country, but it does declare that the earth produced no crops. Both texts, however, contrast the situation elsewhere with the one in Egypt. Genesis 41:55-57 tells us how the people came to Pharaoh, who directed them to Joseph. Joseph opened the storehouses that he had them filled and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt.
Yeah, now Latin lacks in exchange for money.
Ah, okay.
So Latin versions of Jubilees would imply that he was just giving it to them.
Which would be nice.
Yeah, it would be. Especially given that they no longer have the ability to produce on their own, and they are forced to buy from Joseph, who has monopolized the entire industry.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's monopolized it.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible of him, actually. The famine was very severe in the land of Canaan. Jacob heard that there was food in Egypt, so he sent his 10 sons to get food for him in Egypt. But he did not send Benjamin. They arrived with those who were coming to Egypt.
So this entire what you just read, that section. So it's from Genesis 42:1-5, but it's just a really, really short version.
But we remember what happened in Genesis, where they were having this, famine in Canaan, and they needed food, and they heard that Egypt had food, so they sent down to Egypt.
Yeah.
And they had no reason to believe that they were going to run into Joseph there. Obviously.
Right, yeah. They're like, we sold him off. He's not going to be like king or anything.
Yeah. Now, if I remember the Genesis story, he trolls them a lot when they start.
Yeah, he definitely messes with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So Joseph recognized them, but they did not recognize him. He spoke with them, asked them questions, and said to them, "Are you not spies? Ooh, you have come to investigate the paths of the land." He then imprisoned them.
Oh, so here's something a little bit different. So in Genesis, he just says, "You are spies. You have come to see nakedness of the land."
Yeah, Latin lacks the question entirely.
Yeah.
Afterwards, he sent again and summoned them. He detained only Simeon and sent his 9 brothers away. He filled their sacks with grain and returned their money to them in their sacks, but they did not know this. He ordered them to bring their youngest brother because they told him that their father was alive and their youngest brother also. They went up from the land of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan. They told their father everything that had happened to them and how the ruler of the country had spoken harshly with them and was holding Simeon until they should bring Benjamin. Jacob said, "You have deprived me of children. Joseph does not exist, nor does Simeon exist, and you are going to take Benjamin. Your wickedness has come upon me." He said, "My son will not go with you. Perhaps he would become ill, for their mother gave birth to 2. One has died, and this one, too, you will take from me. Perhaps he would catch fever on the way. Then you would bring down my old age and sorrow to Sheol.
Oh, man.
Yeah, for he saw that their money was returned, each one in his purse, and he was afraid to send them for this reason. They make a much bigger deal of this in Genesis.
Yeah, so Jacob's lament that the 9 had deprived him of children may imply that he suspected them of complicitly in the death of Joseph, since he was the first one he lists among the 3 lost or in danger of being lost, where Jacob speaks vaguely in Genesis 42:36, quote, all this has happened to me. In Jubilees 42:10, he refers to their wickedness that has impacted him so heavily. Exactly what he means does not explain further, but once more, it could be his way of saying he believed they bore guilt in the disappearance of Joseph. The Jacob of Jubilees expresses his concern about Benjamin's welfare in more detail than does in Genesis. In the latter, he worries, just as he had in Genesis 42:4, that harm will befall Benjamin. In the former, he fears he will get sick or catch a fever. His youth is not a factor in either text. The reference to his mother, who bore 2 sons, explains what Jacob meant by his brother is dead and he alone is left. Benjamin was, of course, not his only surviving son. Jubilees clarifies that he was talking only about Rachel's children. We can check Judah's words to Joseph in Genesis 44:20 and Jacob's, cited by Judah, in 44:27-28. Both texts make clear that Jacob believed the loss of Benjamin would hasten the end of his life and would be the fault of his remaining sons. Okay, so the ones that he worried about the most were the ones that he viewed to be at risk of getting screwed over by their other brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's point out that this is Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob is worried about brothers.
Yeah, because he knows how bad he can be.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll also note that the word Sheol was interpreted as death in Ethiopic and the depths in Latin.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. It was pretty much synonymous.
Yeah. Now the famine grew increasingly severe in the land of Canaan and in every land except the land of Egypt, because many Egyptians had kept their seed in storage places after they saw Joseph collecting grain.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yep, placing it in storehouses and keeping it for the years of the famine. The Egyptians fed themselves with it during the first year of the famine. When Israel saw that the famine was very severe in the land and that there was no relief, he said to his sons, "Go, return, and get us some food that we may not die." But they said, "We will not go. If our youngest brother does not come with us, we will not go." Israel saw that if he did not send him with them, they would all die because of the famine. Then Reuben said, "Put him under my control. If I do not bring him back to you, kill my 2 sons for his life."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Reuben, your character is so weird.
This is intense. Man. But he said to him, "He will not go with you." Then Judah approached and said, "Send him with us. If I do not bring him back with you, then let me be guilty before you throughout my entire lifetime." So he sent him with them during the 2nd year of this week, 2172, on the 1st of the month. Then they arrived in the country of Egypt with all who were going there and had their gifts in their hands, stacked almonds, terebinth nuts, and honeycombs.
Yeah, I could go for some honeycombs.
Oh, yeah. They arrived and stood in front of Joseph. When he saw his brother Benjamin, he recognized him and said to him...
there's a couple differences here from Genesis.
Well, let me finish verse 21.
Fine.
"Is this my youngest brother?" They said to him, "He is." He said, "May God be gracious to you, my son." That's the end of verse 21.
Okay. So, some of the stuff that was listed in the previous verse derives from Genesis 42:5, verses dealing with their first journey, not from Genesis 43. Genesis presents the list of the choice fruits of the land the brothers carried with them as part of Jacob's direct speech, and names 6 of them, 4 of which appear in Jubilees. So a little bit different there. In Jubilees, it's resin, almonds, terebinth nuts, and honeycombs, while in Genesis it's balm, honey, gum, resin, pistachio nuts, and almonds. So Jubilees includes 4 of the 6 in Genesis and arranges them in the order 4, 6, 5, 2. The equivalents in parentheses above are based on the terms in the Ethiopic Genesis. In Jubilees, these are said to be the gifts they carried in their hands, with no indication that Jacob told them to bring them as a gift for the man. The writer also does not refer to their carrying twice as much money as the first time. Neither Genesis nor Jubilees explains why items such as honey, pistachio nuts, and almonds were available and expendable as gifts during a severe famine. Good question.
Yeah. Okay. He sent him into his house and brought Simeon out to them. He prepared a dinner for them. They presented him with his gifts that they had brought in their hands. They ate in front of him. He gave portions to all of them, but Benjamin's share was 7 times larger than the share of any of them. They ate and drank. They got up and stayed with their donkeys. Joseph conceived of a plan by which he would know their thoughts, whether they were peaceful thoughts between them. He said to the man who was in charge of his house, "Fill all their sacks with food for them, and return their money to them in their containers. Put the cup with which I drink in the sack of the youngest, the silver cup, and send them away."
Oh, yeah, I remember the whole silver cup thing.
Yeah.
Although, wasn't the story a little bit different?
Maybe a little bit, but not significantly different. But
What verse was that?
that was the last verse. Verse 25.
Oh, okay. So in Genesis, Joseph had devised a plan or test for determining whether his brothers were honest men, a ruse to force them to bring Benjamin when they came back. His siblings had now passed that test. The writer of Jubilees does not employ the language of testing in describing their encounter with Joseph during trip number 1. But now he introduces similar vocabulary to serve another purpose. He wants to investigate whether there were peaceful thoughts between them. He wants there to be peace among them, but he is still not convinced that harmony reigns. The trial will take the form of testing their feelings for Benjamin, whether they would be willing to co-sign him to slavery for stealing Joseph's special cup in exchange for their freedom. Did they feel toward Benjamin as they had felt toward him? Would they abandon him as they had earlier abandoned him? Do rivalry and jealousy still characterize you get the whole questions, the siblings as they did years ago, to achieve his purpose? The wise Joseph, the man who had orchestrated the survival of so many during the famine, gives the steward the same orders as in Genesis: food and money in everyone's sack, and his silver cup in Benjamin's container. Here and again in chapter 43, the writer is careful to say that Joseph drinks with the cup no more. He avoids any suggestion that Joseph uses it to practice divination. Of course. How could you,
Right.
So do such a thing, even though you were, interpreting dreams, which is a form of divination, but okay.
Right. We're getting very close to the end of Jubilees here.
Yeah, we are.
2 more weeks, I think. Is there 50 chapters? So we'll do 43, 44, 45.
Yeah, we'll divvy it up. And yeah.
We could do like 4 in one of them. Both of them.
I would say so.
It's fine.
This was a little shorter. No,
we can do 4.
Yeah, we can do 4 each.
Yeah, so 43, 44, 45, 46, 47,
This will be
48,
fine,
49,
yeah.
50. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll split it up like that.
Yeah, so next week we'll be doing 4 chapters.
Yep.
And the week after we'll also be doing 4 chapters.
Yes, we will.
And then after that, we'll be getting into Tobit.
Yes, we will.
Pull that out.
Yes, here's the commentary that we have. Yeah, there it is from the Anchor Bible. And of course, we use the same commentary series for we used it for Ben Sira, and we also used it for Maccabees.
Yeah.
Carrie A. Moore.
So now after Tobit, we're going to be doing probably the alphabet of Ben Sira.
Oh, I sure hope so.
Yeah.
The alphabet of Ben Sira is
This
hilarious.
has been long enough. But
Yeah, we need a little bit of humor on this show, so the alphabet of Ben Sira is where it's at.
a little something special.
Yeah.
But
boy.
I mean, there's so much.
Oh,
Apocrypha.
and on Wednesday, we are going to be joined. Not on Wednesday. What am I talking about? On Sunday, we're going to be joined by.
I was so confused. What are we doing on Wednesday?
Yeah, like I
never do
forgot to tell you guys.
Right?
Yeah. So on Sunday, my apologies. Sunday, we are going to be joined by Landon Knoll, and we are going to be beginning Jeremiah.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Yes, and
Long book.
yeah, and hopefully, I get this one right. But Jason, I want to thank Jason, assuming the name on the order was right, because we got our second. The first commentary came in for Jeremiah.
Oh,
The second one did as well.
awesome!
So thank you, Jason.
Right
Yeah.
on. Jeremiah. It's a long book.
It is.
I think in page count, Psalms is longer, but I'm not sure about word count.
I think it's Jeremiah is longer.
So Jeremiah, very long. We'll be talking about it. And then after Jeremiah, there's like a bunch of short books. I mean, there's Ezekiel, which is a little kind of long.
Yeah.
But like after Ezekiel.
Yeah, there's all the shorter prophets, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's like Ezekiel. Daniel isn't even that long.
Yeah, but
Hosea isn't-
Daniel has a lot of interesting stuff in it.
Yeah.
Like his friends? Come on,
Yeah.
Daniel and his friends.
And it's an apocalyptic work.
But we're going to be having episodes where we go through more than one book of the Bible, probably. Like this back here. The book of Haggai is 2 chapters long.
I thought it was 3.
2 in the KJV.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The book of Zephaniah is 3 chapters
I'm thinking of something
long.
else. Okay.
The Habakkuk is 3 chapters long.
Yeah.
Like Nahum is 3 chapters long. So there's a bunch of books that we'll be able to finish basically in one episode. Some in a couple more. But yeah, once we're through Jeremiah, Ezekiel.
Yeah, and there's also for some of the shorter ones, I'll pick up some commentaries that I think would be very useful. Although I don't think it would be a good idea to cover, more than one book per show.
I think there's one where it's like 1 chapter long, if I remember correctly.
That's the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one
Th-
chapter.
That's the show.
I don't think it would be. Yeah. Here, the book of Obadiah.
Oh yeah,
is 21 verses long.
yeah.
We might
a
as
good
well
show.
do the book of Jonah in that episode too. No,
I mean, I get it.
but we'll figure that out when we come to it. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, because Jonah's also super short. It's
Yeah.
2 chapters, but it's on 2 pages. So yeah, I suppose. Yeah, we'll consider that one.
Get there when you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the amount of text that we read today would be those 2 books combined, basically, roughly.
I think the amount of text we had today would already be surpassing
Yeah,
the amount of text in those 2 books.
maybe. So yeah, we'll come to that when we come to it. Be sure to check us out on Teespring, where we have wacky and fun T-shirts.
Yeah, lots of T-shirts there.
We also have an Amazon wish list. That's where we got that Jeremiah thing from.
Jason, yes,
Jason.
thank you. So if you want to help us out with more commentaries, good observation, Matthew. No beholds today, sadly. So Nightbot, as you can see earlier up there in the chat, he posted the link to our Amazon wish list. So feel free to maybe get something from that if you
more
feel
books
so.
is always good.
Yeah, if you feel so inclined. We also have Patreon, so you could become a patron. You could. And also on Sunday, we're going to be doing the T-shirt giveaway.
Yeah, that's right. For our $10 patrons or higher, you're entered into a T-shirt giveaway every month. We roll the wheel, and we figure out who gets a free T-shirt that month.
Yeah, so if you want to be included in that, why not?
Yeah, why
Become
not?
a patron.
You can also, on Patreon, for $1, get all of our scripts. For $50, you could be on once a month on any of our weekly shows.
Yeah, we got good stuff on there. You got books and books that we publish, self-publish.
All sorts of great stuff. And we also have Facebook and Twitter. Those are free.
Yeah, absolutely free to follow us there. No charge.
No charge.
And I think that's all the shilling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will see you on
okay, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. We will see you on Sunday.